Tyrell Wellick died for a man who did not exist, and that is what makes his arc one of the best tragedies in the entire show. So let's talk about what he actually saw in Elliot, why his obsession was doomed before it started, and what the finale reveals about who he really fell in love with. Tyrell first sees Elliot at All Safe during a routine E-Corp visit, and something clicks immediately. Here is a guy in a hoodie, does not make eye contact, barely speaks, shows zero interest in corporate politics or climbing any ladder, and Tyrell, the guy who has built his entire identity around ambition, power, and control, becomes fixated on him. Why? Because he recognized something he could not name. Elliot was not playing the game. He was not performing. In a room full of people trying to impress E-Corp executives, Elliot looked like he did not care if the building burned down. That was magnetic to Tyrell. He was exhausted from performing. His entire life was a performance. The suits, the posture, the smile. The wife who was more business partner than lover. He had optimized himself into a prison. And then he meets a guy who seems completely free from all of it. Here is the problem. That freedom Tyrell saw, it was not Elliot being enlightened, it was dissociation. The person Tyrell met at All Safe was the mastermind, a personality that had taken over Elliot's body and did not even know it. The mastermind was cold, detached, and laser-focused on destroying E-Corp because he believed that was his purpose. Tyrell mistook mental illness for transcendence. He saw a man unburdened by social expectation and thought, this is power, this is what I want to become. But the mastermind was not free. He was a coping mechanism, a shield built to protect the real Elliot from trauma he could not face. In a sense, Tyrell spent the entire series chasing an illusion. After the 5-9 hack, Tyrell's obsession becomes something else entirely. He goes into hiding, he waits, he puts his entire life on hold for months because he believes Elliot will need him for stage 2. And when they finally reunite, Tyrell says it out loud. I love him, not I admire him, not I believe in him, love. He had built Elliot into something mythical in his mind, a god figure who would remake the world, someone worthy of total devotion. The irony is that the mastermind did not even remember Tyrell for most of season 2. He had blackouts, gaps in memory. He could not recall what happened after the hack. He was in love with someone who literally forgot he existed. So who was the real Elliot? The finale reveals that the Elliot we followed for 4 seasons was not the original. The real Elliot was locked away in a mental construct, living in a perfect loop, protected from the pain of his actual life. The real Elliot was softer, more vulnerable. He was the version that could not handle what his father did to him. The personalities, including the mastermind, were created to shield him. If this reading holds, then most of Tyrell's interactions were with a mask. The confidence he admired, the detachment he envied, the vision he followed. It likely did not come from the real Elliot. Tyrell may have fallen in love with a defense mechanism. Tyrell's death is one of the most debated scenes in the series. He gets shot by the Dark Army. He wanders into the woods. He sees a strange blue light, and then he is gone. But the tragedy is not the death itself. It is who he dies for. In his final moments, Tyrell is still thinking about Elliot, still believing in the mission, still devoted to someone who may not have been fully present in any of their conversations. The mastermind did not seem to love Tyrell back, at least not in the way he wanted. He needed Tyrell's resources, his access, his willingness to do anything, and Tyrell gave it all freely because he believed they were partners in something bigger. Whether they were actually partners or whether Tyrell was being used is something the show leaves open, but the imbalance was real. Here's what makes this even more painful. Tyrell and the mastermind were mirrors of each other. Both were, in different ways, constructed identities. One built himself into the perfect corporate climber. The other built himself into the perfect revolutionary. Neither was fully authentic. Both were running from something they could not face. Tyrell was running from mediocrity, the fear that without the performance, he was nothing special. The mastermind was running from trauma, the knowledge that the real Elliot was too broken to survive the world. They recognized each other. That is why the connection felt so intense, but neither of them understood what they were actually seeing. Two masks fell in love with each other, and when the masks came off, there was nothing left to hold on to. Here is something interesting. Joanna Wellick met Elliot once, and she immediately sensed something was wrong. When Elliot showed up at her door looking for her husband, Joanna studied him. He gave a fake name, said he was a friend. She played along, pretending to know where Tyrell was, but really she was trying to extract information, and before he left, she threatened to kill him if he had done anything to him. She said it in Danish, so he did not understand. Joanna was a manipulator. She read people for a living, and in one short conversation, she picked up on what her husband missed across 4 seasons. Something about Elliot did not add up. Compare that to Tyrell. He spent hours with Elliot, worked alongside him, declared his love, and never once stopped to ask why Elliot sometimes seemed like a completely different person. Why he had gaps in memory. Why conversations they had apparently never happened. He was too invested in the fantasy to question it. Other people in Elliot's life actually knew him, or at least tried to. Darlene knew something was fractured. She had grown up with Elliot. She understood his trauma, even if she did not fully grasp how deep the split went. When the mastermind did not recognize her in season 1, she was confused. But she stayed. She pushed. She tried to reach whoever was underneath. Angela knew Elliot since childhood. She saw the pain behind the distance. She worried about him. She asked questions even when he pushed her away. Krista, his therapist, spent years trying to understand what was happening inside his head. She documented his episodes. She noticed the patterns. All of these people cared about Elliot, but more importantly, they tried to see him. Not a projection, not a symbol, him. Tyrell never did that. He saw what he wanted to see, and he called it love. Sam Esmail built Tyrell's arc to show what happens when you worship an idea instead of knowing a person. He never asked Elliot real questions, never tried to understand his past, his pain, his actual motivations. He projected a fantasy onto Elliot and then devoted himself to that fantasy. This is why he could not see the obvious signs that something was deeply wrong. The blackouts, the conversations with no one, the erratic behavior. A person who actually knew Elliot would have noticed, but he did not want to know Elliot. He wanted Elliot to be the answer to everything missing in his own life, and that is not love. That is desperation wearing a mask. Tyrell Wellick is one of the most tragic characters in television, not because he died, but because he may have spent his entire arc chasing someone who was never fully there. The real Elliot might have actually liked him. We never got to find out, because if the finale is right, they never really met. The real Elliot was asleep the whole time, locked in a loop, while the mastermind wore his face and built a revolution out of rage. He deserved better, but he also made a choice. He chose the myth over the man, and the myth could not save him. Thanks for rocking with me on this one. If you got something out of it, like and subscribe. I will catch you in the next one.